Welcome to our 200th episode. It has been an amazing journey. Thank you so much for coming on this journey with us. The exploration of homeopathic remedies and what homeopathy is and how homeopathy works, as well as meeting lots of people who just give their whole lives to homeopathy, has been extraordinary. And I have enjoyed every single minute of it. So, what we've done, we've pulled together some of the clips from the last 200 episodes and we've put them in one big episode for you today. We will be looking at homeopathy with Tay, looking at celiac diseases. We'll be exploring histamine with Nur. We'll be having a look at panic attacks with Dee and parasites with Gitanjali. We'll also put a clip in there about psoriasis with Anne. So you've got a bumper episode this week. I do hope that you enjoy it. Thank you, thank you, thank you for coming on this journey with us and making homeopathy just much more accessible because we can talk about it. Thank you. Now, we couldn't do a summary of our best topics without looking at celiac because we're seeing this so often just now. And so my interview here with Tay Henry just talks about how celiac is actually an autoimmune disease and how we're now looking at more events than just gluten. So it's really interesting when we start discussing foods, we start discussing organic practices, we start discussing farming practices. Have a look, see what you think. I think this is going to open some ha-ha moments for you and just think, oh my goodness, what is happening? What do I need to do to help my family? Tell us a little bit, first of all, about what celiac is and what would happen in mainstream medicine. And that is a good way then for us to introduce why homeopathy might be really good.
Yeah. So celiac is an autoimmune condition where the immune responds abnormally to gluten, which is the protein, if people don't know, in wheat, barley, or rye. They often know wheat, not the other two. And I think the confusion comes sometimes where we think maybe it's an allergy or a food intolerance, which it can be just regarded as, but it's actually an immune response, an autoimmune response. And so very often it's poorly detected in children. This is the problem. And so, we'll take our children along to the doctor or somebody who suspects, or maybe doesn't even suspect, but has tummy troubles, diarrhea or constipation, some pain, or maybe the child, this is the problem at a young age, maybe the child can't tell them exactly what they're experiencing or feeling. So they might go along to the doctors, and that test may be not done for a long period of time. And that's where you'll get a degradation then of the gut. And so it really depends on how quick you can get a diagnosis or treat the symptoms as we would. So it's when those symptoms go untreated, unfortunately, that it can then become something that then can sometimes become a little bit harder or indeed longer to take care of. So, yeah. So when somebody can come to a homeopath, obviously we can get started on the symptoms
Because
quicker.
we don't need a
Yeah.
diagnosis. And tell me, how does your nutrition aspect work with the homeopathy? If you're helping somebody on this journey, how are you prescribing homeopathy and nutritional help as well?
Mm. So I think what I learned, so I was trained as a nutritional therapist before, but how homeopathy helped me, it helped me create that timeline and I was already doing the food journals, but the timeline is so, so important. And the two together, not always, but something like celiac is absolutely vital that we're working on both things at the same time. Because like I said, if we don't understand that this is a problem caused by gluten, even though homeopathy can be amazing at helping with those acute symptoms, it's never going to get the underlying cause. So like I said, if we can have a cessation of gluten we can really use the remedies to support and build back that good nutrient absorption. We can see poor growth, poor development in children with celiac. And so we can really restore the body. And when the gut is, this is a condition that mostly affects the small intestine. So it's a big deal, you know. So if we can create that harmony and that healing again, we can then get great absorption again. The child feels comfortable, the person feels comfortable to eat foods again, because very often they're also quite nervous of eating foods when they're in pain. So
Yeah.
you've got this you've got so many aspects of celiac.
Yeah.
And I've seen children in the state where they can be, or person, quite normal, the tiniest bit of gluten, and this can be something else as well. And then they have this incredible debilitating state. And so this is why homeopathy, no matter how long you're kind of removed from the recovery of it, there always might be this susceptibility, of course. It's a trigger. And so knowing your remedies or knowing how that shows up for you and having that remedy on hand can be incredible.
It's very interesting, isn't it? And I always want to ask the question, obviously, the way that the food is produced in supermarkets and bread now is very different than it was produced 30, 40, 50 years ago. And of course, even the grain is very different.
Mm.
So, are we seeing more celiac? Are we just more aware of it? What do you think's happening with the years as they go by?
I think we're seeing this with a lot of food, Mary. So interestingly, oats can also come up
Mm,
as part of celiac. And that's interesting, but they say that if you have organic, it's less likely. And going a little bit off the topic, but I even see this with nuts, that maybe a child has tried, say, like a peanut butter, and they've showed some allergy response. Again, I know we're not talking about allergy, we're talking about
yeah,
immune. It's all inflammatory. And yet you ask them to try the organic and they don't have the same response. And they believe it's the way, not only that it's sprayed or made, whatever, but it's the way it's stored.
yeah,
So when it's not organic, it can have this mold on it. So it's a real pain and it's a real shame. And I think for sure, I also think it's about that we can get anything from anywhere, right?
yes,
And we're getting certain grains and stuff that maybe our ancestors didn't have. So, my father's Scottish, we would have grown up on oats, he would have grown up on oats in England, right? You would have had certain grains. And then here we are, we can go to a shop and get anything.
so tell me something about some of the remedies that you might be looking at.
Hmm. Well, some of the acute ones, actually, you'll know from when I say them, they show up and they're quite similar. So, Lycopodium, massive one. Love China, love Carbo Veg. So they're kind of our ones in the moment.
Mhm.
So Carbo Veg, I mean, Lycopodium, very bloated, very gassy, smelly or not. Um, the big one with Lycopodium is that they will feel the bloating or the gas, the nausea, the diarrhea, or the concept right after eating. It's typically right after the event of eating. Sometimes it can mean, as you and I know, lycopodium, it shows up in the afternoon, but not always the case, depending in this situation, depends when they might have eaten the food. But it might just aggravate them a bit more. Um, and then you've got something like China, who, if the person is having lots of diarrhea because of the celiac, then they've got this loss of fluids, and China is a very weak state. So, still showing up some symptoms the same as lycopodium, but less digestive in the sense that less bloated, but more weak. And you normally see that, and you can of course change remedies. So, but I normally see that for those people who have got the chronic diarrhea after actually having the suspicious food. All
Okay.
those people, all those people who are almost recovered, we can never recover, but are recovered as much as they can from celiac. They go to a party or go to a restaurant and they have asked everything about the food and they know 10 minutes after that food it's got gluten in it.
Yes.
That's when they need something
Yeah.
like the lycopodium,
Yes.
like the china, after they've emptied their bowels that night.
and that will
Yeah,
help them through. So those remedies are excellent for that. Our next clip is going to be with Nur Reved, and we're going to be talking about histamine. So that's histamine as the homeopathic remedy, histamine as the hormone in your body. How is it working? What happens when it's dysregulated? And why sometimes is your body overreacting with histamine? What's happening to make it an allergic response? And how might modern life be pushing your body out of balance? It's a really important topic, and you're really going to enjoy the elements that are coming out in this conversation. So of course, it's a substance within our body, and I
Yeah,
think it's in the foods that we eat. And I think,
absolutely.
tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about, because obviously it has that reaction, doesn't it? When we get bitten by an insect, it's the
Yes.
histamine that comes and, well, what is it doing? Is it removing the toxins, or is it starting the blood flow again? Because,
It starts the reaction. So it's
okay,
basically is like I'm gonna like burst out of the cell and be like, okay, reaction.
okay,
Let's like move that away from our body so the body can start bringing all the blood flow, and that's where we see all the itchiness and the urticaria, the sorry, this is a
yeah.
bad word.
No, no, no.
The
Well, it's good
thrush,
for us because,
the
yeah,
thrush,
yeah, yeah,
hives, the very famous hives. Yeah,
exactly.
so it's just an alert, the first alert of the body. It's like an immediate thing. So the body can start all the other more processed and more long-term immune responses.
So,
Exactly.
are we saying that we are seeing more bodies react inappropriately to things, and that's why it's become a problem? Because normally we need the histamine to react, we need it to do something, but then we need it to calm down. And so, what is happening when it overreacts?
Right. So that's the big problem. That's the big like question mark also for us homeopaths,
Yeah.
why people overreact. And this can be, well, it depends on how you look at it. Do you look at it from the homeopathic point of view, or are you looking at it from the medical point of view? But to say in a very short way, it really goes down to what happened to you along the way,
Okay.
right? So, what kind of exposure did you have? I would definitely say that there's a lot of DNA, so there's a lot of genetic components to do with it, environmental. So, it's a very good question. I would say that there's much more environmental components nowadays than they might have been because of chemicals, because of whatever there is in the air, right?
Yeah.
Also, what kind of food we take to ourselves. So much more processed food. Um, we're much less in nature, at least the people living in the cities. Obviously, there are people in nature, but I think there's like pollution that is being a big factor. And as I mentioned in the beginning, it's really the history of the one person of why are they overreacting, but we'll maybe touch base on that later.
I think this might be a good time just
Yeah.
to explain the difference, perhaps, between the conventional method of using an antihistamine. How does that
Mhm.
work compared to a homeopathic remedy
Mhm.
such as histamine? Because it works in completely different ways, doesn't it? And for
Yeah,
people who are not so au fait with homeopathy, it might be worth us just doing a few points on that.
sure. Okay, so basically, as already it says in the word antihistamine, so it works on receivers in the histamine release. So I think it connects to the receiver of the H1, if I'm not mistaken, either H1 or H2 receivers that we have on the histamine cells, and it literally blocks the release of histamine.
Okay.
Right? This is how it's very simplified right now, what I'm
Yeah.
saying. In the biochemistry, you would go through a whole thing, but that's basically the idea. It blocks the release of histamine in the body. Now, as we said, histamine has many, many functions in our body. It has functions in the skin, it has functions in the gut, the release of gut acids. in our brain. So alertness versus sleepiness. It has in the lungs. And when we do an antihistamine, on the one hand, it will relax that histamine overload or outsourcing of it, which is good because the person can sleep, can actually, it's interesting. I didn't actually know about this, that it's so that it has a neurotransmitter function in our body. And actually, because of this alertness and sleepness regulation, that's why people, when they take antihistamines, get sleepy.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Because the histamine isn't doing the job.
Right, right.
Interesting.
So that is one of those side effects that people suffer from. They're like, oh, should I take it? I need to drive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm having this. So that would be a minus for the antihistamine, for example.
Exactly.
Or if they have gut acidity difficulties, then obviously if they take a lot of antihistamines, if you take it once in a while, that's a different story. But if you're someone who's suffering on a regular basis, then in my opinion, there's something to look at in a whole way. And that's where we can compare it to histaminum, which in homeopathy, it works with you. It doesn't work against you. It doesn't heal you. It just goes in you and says, hey, remember,
This is how you're meant to
this is
behave.
how you're supposed
Yeah.
to react. Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. And then your body's like, oh, right, true. Why? And then it just like, yeah, it just works. It works in a completely complementary way. So your body has that strength on the one hand, but also that calm and everything to do it on its own, to regulate itself.
So what we're talking about, instead of going in there and blocking the our body's reaction, this is actually something that's having a conversation with our body to say, let's do this a different way and learn a different way again.
Exactly.
So that it's not going to repeat as often, so that
Exactly.
we can train our bodies to react in a different way ongoing. And I think that's the biggest thing, isn't it? Is that with homeopathy, you're not going to be taking it forever.
No. Well, hopefully
Because
not.
it's going to be changing the way that your body reacts long term. Whereas with a medication that's acting just right now, today,
Exactly.
stopping that, but it's not going to change anything in the future. It's very interesting, isn't it, for people
Not
perhaps
only
that are
that,
looking
but
to do this.
not only that, but I would even go out and say that people who start taking antihistamines will see that over time they take more and more and more of those antihistamines. So you really get addicted in a way to that relief because your body doesn't even know how to reteach itself
How to
how to
turn it off.
regulate.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Okay, so that's an interesting way of putting it, really, then that the normal mainstream medicine is actually doing the job for you. It's stopping it happen, whereas the homeopathy is saying, no, 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 you've got to stop it happening. You've got to make
Right,
a change.
right.
Okay, really interesting.
Yeah.
Now, our next clip comes from Dee Nicole, and Dee is talking about panic attacks. She has a lovely way of explaining how a panic attack is very like your fire alarm in your body. It's stopping you, it's saying, oh my goodness, pay attention now, or death will occur. This is what a panic attack feels like. Now, Dee will be explaining how this feeds on fear and how the actual fear of having a panic attack becomes worse than the panic attack itself. What you can do about it, how you can help your body relearn and create new ways of reacting is all in this clip.
Even more than that, in homeopathy, we're going to honor the fact that a panic attack is actually your body's last resort to get your attention about something that's happening all the time underneath the surface. Yeah, so that leads us back to levels of anxiety. of how you're doing in your everyday, how you're functioning in your everyday, what it is that you're afraid of, what's worrying you, because it's not that moment of panic attack that is actually the issue. That's just your body saying, I really need you to pay attention here. Please pay attention to me. Yeah. It's like I live in a apartment where the fire alarms are extremely sensitive. Okay. It's frustrating. It's annoying. That's how sometimes panic attacks are too when they pop up. They're frustrating and annoying because you know there's not actually a fire, but that alarm is sounding and we have to listen to it.
Life gets to a certain point where actually it's stopping them have life. It's stopping them doing something specific. And thoughts come to mind with one of my patients who was, okay, I can drive, I can get in the car, I just cannot go over that bridge. And
Yeah.
what I'm coming to you for is because I want to be able to go and visit my parents who live the other side of that bridge. And that's their goal.
And do you know what's interesting about panic attacks in particular in that example is panic actually feeds on fear. So the more suddenly we're afraid of the panic, in addition to whatever we were afraid of in the first place. And so that just makes it build. And so it's about taking that all down in a way that's really easy for your body to manage. For a lot of people, when panic attacks happen, it's the moment they let go, as opposed to that moment that they were afraid of or that they're in, right? It's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever been to the grocery store and had all your stuff and your bags are full and you're carrying them. And I'm imagining paper bags right now, right? I know our environmental movement has put us into reusable canvas bags, which is better. But if you're carrying those bags and you feel like they might fall apart, it's like getting home before they fall apart because you've been holding them so tight that whole time that the moment you let it go, then the bag is able to tear. Yeah. And so for a lot of people, panic attacks come up in that moment that they try to let go, and then they realize they've been feeling unsafe the whole time. When there wasn't necessarily what we would consider a biological cause for feeling unsafe, right? It's funny because one of my favorite teachers of homeopathy always says, good homeopathy gives you a bad memory. And so you'll ask them, you'll ask someone, if you still feel when you encounter this particular situation, do you still feel A, B, C, and D? And they're like, I didn't even realize I felt A, B, C, and D.
That is such a good way of saying it, actually. I love that. I'm going to pinch that phrase, Dee, because yeah, just we see it all of the time, don't they? They just absolutely forget what they had been feeling.
That's because it's completely healed. Your body doesn't even retain the information of it.
Our next clip is with Gitanjali Goel. Now, we will be discussing parasites. That is the environment that makes parasites easy to settle in your system, but also your susceptibility, your inherited susceptibility, your weakness that you were born with, and how that influences your parasite uptake as your life goes on. Now, of course, with most forms of medicine, there's absolutely nothing that you can do about this. But in homeopathy, there is. So this is an exciting episode that you are going to really want to watch.
Yes, today we are going to talk about parasites, and basically, parasites are organisms that live on or inside an organism. Basically, like people like us, or even pets, and they get their food from or at the expense of the host. Like so, basically, we are the host, or our pets are also the host for parasites, and they can cause a range of health problems and can be found in various environments such as water, soil, and food, and they are much more common than most people realize. We have been conditioned to think that parasites are something that only happens somewhere else in some developing country, unsafe water, or extreme situations. But in clinical practice, that assumption simply doesn't hold up. parasites don't always show up dramatically on stool tests, and they don't always cause acute illnesses. Many people are living with low-grade parasitic burdens for years and sometimes for decades without even knowing that they are having them, but they are manifesting as fatigue, bloating, skin problems, even hormonal imbalances, sometimes anxiety, teeth grinding, which is very common in children, or sometimes unexplained inflammation as well. And exposure does not really require any international travel. It can happen right where you are through your food, through water, your pets, soil, or even everyday environments such as daycare or swimming pools. But the tricky part is that they don't always announce themselves. You might not be see like obvious stomach pain or diarrhea. Instead, you might experience fatigue, bloating, food intolerances is the big one, skin rashes, or even mood changes. In my practice, I've seen people struggle for years with what feels like a never-ending cycle of digestive upset, hormonal imbalance, or low energy, and often parasites are the part of the hidden puzzle. And not all parasites show uh, any kind of traumatic symptoms. So it's sometimes it's very hard to find out if people are having parasites. They are dealing with this infestation.
Yes, I absolutely agree, because we actually deal with this a lot, don't we, with homeopathy, and it's not usually something, the first thing that people come with to us and say, this is the problem I've got. But the great thing about homeopathy is that we don't actually need that diagnosis. We don't need a positive test, do we, to say about this, because we can tell from those symptoms that you are presenting with. Can you explain, Gitanjali, why that we might all be exposed to the same water, the same food, the same soil, but some people are going to suffer more than others?
More than others. That's definitely, that's a very, very interesting question. So it is happening because of we all are like kind of, our immune system is not perfect for everyone. We are having our different levels of health, and if it really depends on our level of health and what kind of miasm we are going through. In homeopathy, there are miasms. Like miasms are the uh, deep-seated patterns of susceptibility that influence how chronic diseases will be developing in the person. So basically, they play parasitic infections. They play a very important role in miasms. It- the patterns shape the body's internal environment, including body's ability to resist infection, how your body is going to heal, and how it is going to maintain the balance. So, when it comes to parasitic infections, understanding miasm helps explain why some individuals are more prone to infection and why symptoms vary from one person to another person. So, miasms are basically inherited and acquired patterns of adaptation. They describe how the body responds to stress, any kind of threat, or any kind of imbalance over generations, not just in one lifetime. So, if your body is a house, miasms are the architectural blueprint, not the furniture. You can rearrange your furniture endlessly, but if the foundation is unstable, the same problem keep returning. So basically, parasites tend to express differently depending on the miasmatic terrain you are in. So organism may be still the same, but the relationship to it is entirely different. So I can explain this further.
Yeah, let's have a little bit more about miasms, because it's really interesting, isn't it? What you're actually saying is what we're born with is going to affect our susceptibility to whether we cold or suffer from symptoms from the parasites. But more importantly, there are not many types of medicine or health programs which can stimulate your susceptibilities that you were born with, but homeopathy can. So that's why we need to go through those main miasms that you are born with, so that you can understand the difference. So thank you. Let's go on to that. Now, I was very interested to hear about you giving it for a month continuously there, because we have a lot to do with the moon phases, don't we? Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes, definitely. I will say that this isn't just a folklore. From a biological perspective, also, this is not strange. The moon influences tides, and our bodies are largely made of water. So, fluid retention, lymphatic flow, bile release, and nervous system activity all can shift subtly during the lunar phases. So, parasites are highly responsive to these rhythms. They tend to be more active, migrate more, and respond during full moon, which is why symptoms often intensify during this time period. So, during a full moon, our sleep patterns can be disrupted. People often report that they have a lighter sleep, or they are waking again and again throughout the night. And parasites, which are more active in the digestive tract during this rest and repair cycles, they start to exploit these subtle disruptions and leading to increased digestive or systemic symptoms like bloating, fatigue, and irritability. So that people report that we have increased bloating, we have increased gas, increased anal itching or sometimes nasal itching, teeth grinding, insomnia, emotional agitation, even anxiety, and there can be sudden flare up of chronic symptoms as well.
Yes, yes. And by giving the remedy for a whole month, you're covering that whole span, that whole time period. Excellent.
Yeah, but not in every case. Like I will be giving the remedy for the whole month and not Sina for every case, because we have lots of remedies which can help get rid of this parasitic infection or to bring the whole system into balance. So it's not just the Sina is the only remedy, and not in every case, depending on the case to case. Her symptoms gave me an indication that she needs, because I was seeing her every week. So I reassessed next week and then reassessed next week.
Okay.
And based on that, like I continued the remedy.
Our next clip is with Anne Lovatt, and Anne is going to be talking about the trauma of psoriasis, because the trauma that causes psoriasis can be inherited, it can be emotional, and also it can be physical. So there's an awful lot of aspects that we have to consider when we want to address the cause, so that we can not only change the symptoms as they're occurring now, but also so that they don't return in the future. And we'll be going through some cases. So it's really interesting to understand the difference and the different prescribing methods as well, as she goes through and explains what can be done and how homeopathy can help. This is a clip that you're going to find absolutely inspiring, and I hope that you will be able to click through and watch the full episode. Enjoy.
I had a case recently of a man who cut his shin on a piece of coral, and that was the first patch of psoriasis he developed was on that patch of skin, which I found really fascinating. And of course, I immediately gave him red coral, Corallum rubrum, as my first remedy. And I think I probably gave it too soon. It didn't do too much, but the connection is there that if you've the injury was the significant trigger for him. So that could be sunburn, it could be tattoos, it could be a surgical incision. And so new patches can appear exactly where the skin was injured. And so as a homeopath, we're looking at why that happens. Why does the injury to the skin trigger the disease? And we're looking for always for the root cause. Maybe side effects. Actually, people say side effects. More and more I'm telling my patients, there's no such thing as a side effect in medicine. There's just effects. You take a drug, it affects the whole being. The whole being, every part of you. There's no such thing as a side effect. It's just you have to take into account the effect of the medicine on the whole body. And unfortunately, modern medicine, brilliant as it is in so many ways and life-saving in so many ways, and I'm absolutely not, huge fan of everything that can be done. It's just a different philosophical approach.
Yes.
But it's a bit of a sledgehammer, really. Sometimes, the looking at resolving what is a holistic issue with just one chemical change in the body, but that changes so much. Well, they're trying to target one thing specifically, but it often just changes everything in the body. That's also an interesting point. Is it an illness? It's not always an illness for some people have psoriasis all their lives and they don't care. It's fine.
Yes.
I have a very elderly. I have an elderly patient with a patch behind her neck. She never talks about it. It's just there. She's fine. It's just one of those things. So she's not actually ill. She's not suffering. It's just part of who she is.
Yes.
And this particular patient, very, very, very traumatic marriage, was married to an alcoholic and a lot of suppression.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really get her to tell me about just how painful it was when she went through all of what she went through with, I won't go into the whole case, but she's not ready to tell me. She's in her late 80s. She will never be ready to tell me.
No.
And she lives with this patch of psoriasis. And it's almost like she's developed a thick skin.
Yes.
And that's how I think about psoriasis. People develop a thick skin because they can't allow difficult emotions to touch them deeply because it's too painful. It's too much.
I have had experience with one client where I couldn't really find any emotional trauma themselves. And it occurred to me at one point to ask about family trauma before them. And it worked out that, his father was actually in Hiroshima, when the nuclear bomb went off. And so then understanding his childhood with his father's emotions and able to address it from that direction gave a completely different overview.
Well, I've been to Hiroshima several times. It's an overwhelming experience, and it's a beautiful open park area. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. It's unspeakable what was done.
Yeah,
it's unspeakable. But how can we forget that and forget the 50 million who died in the Second World War? It's absolutely horrendous and ingrained in generations, I think.
Exactly. That psyche of it being part, it just makes sense that you're holding it in every cell in your body, doesn't it? And it, yes, just understanding that actually this trauma, this happening, this change could have happened at any stage. Well, my goodness, wasn't that a whole host of wonderful, inspiring clips of homeopathy? I hope that from this you can take away something that is really going to be life-changing for somebody that you know. Please share, please explore, please go and find out more about homeopathy. And of course, click through to the full episodes because these were just little clips taken from our podcast, Homeopathy 24/7.